Hello guys and welcome to another video. In today's video I'm going to be talking about my top reads of the year so far. So I did do a video where I spoke about my top 4-star reads from January to March. There was meant to be a follow-up which was meant to be the 5-star reads from January to March, and then technically from what comes after March? April to July, if we're thinking like every 3 months. There was meant to be another video. That's not. So we are here because it is, well, we've passed halfway through the year. I thought I would just talk about my top 5-star reads and then show you some of the Storygraph stats, which you'll have to be mindful to include July because I am filming this halfway through July. But because there's not actually that many like 5-star reads, this should be quite easy to like go through. So the first one I'm going to start with, this is not in chronological order or anything like that, is this poetry collection. Well, I think it's like songs and lyrics as well. Lyrics and Poetry by Florence Welch. She is the singer in Florence and the Machine. I know a couple of like their hit songs and I can enjoy them. Do you know, one of their songs will always remind me of How I Met Your Mother, because it's in like one of the episodes. I'd heard of the song before then, but I remember watching the whole series and then that came on. But this was so nice. I think one of the reasons I really love this is, you know, I hope to release a poetry collection, and when I do, I want it to be like this, because this is like poetry. A lot of it is just actually the song lyrics from the band, which I love it. You know, when you obviously in its like most like original form, like lyrics will be poetry. Like there are just some stunning songs written which you're just like, that's amazing. I think one of the things that I always see this is one of my favourite bands. I wouldn't say they're a favourite now, but definitely like a couple of years ago they would be. It's just because I haven't listened to a lot of their recent albums. Is The Killers. I think when you listen to like a lot of their songs, their lyrics are like poetry. They sound absolutely beautiful. So of course, seeing a lot of this written down, I was like, wow, I might not listen to her music, but like as a writer, amazing. Like they just read beautifully. So yeah, if you're familiar with, I guess, their catalogue, their albums, you will know a lot of the lyrics, but there's a song I'm guessing called Rabbit Heart, I'm Not Calling You a Liar, Howl, I'm just looking through this, Kiss with a Fist, and you just read it and you're like, oh, this is absolutely beautiful. What I love about this is it kind of is like a scrapbook, so I'm guessing, you know, some of these are things that she might have done like, you know, in a scrapbook and put into here, and I think some of them are just like, yeah, here you go. There are photos from like her being on tour. And then there are some that are just like, I guess, doodles that she's written on like notepads from like hotels and stuff like that, or maybe song lyrics that she's written. And I just love it. So I don't know if part of loving this is something that I would absolutely love to like create for myself, and it's like how I've always imagined like myself releasing like a poetry collection. With, you know, bits of things that have inspired me and things like that. But I think also it is just reading some of her work and just being like, that's absolutely stunning. Like just seeing how lyrical it is, how heartfelt it is, how much I kind of just like related to some bits. I just thought it was absolutely beautiful. So yeah, it was up there for me for a 5-star collection in terms of poetry, because I just like this form of like art, you know, reading beautiful words and then having these lovely accompanying pictures or bits of inspiration or bits of her life. And you know, I'm not someone who has like followed the band obsessively or even would say like I like the band. I don't dislike the band, right? But I thought this was like really great, so I'm not coming at it from the perspective of being a fangirl, just someone who thoroughly enjoyed it. Another book that's on this list is a poetry handbook by Mary Oliver. I got this from the Scottish Poetry Library and I really want to buy my own copy. I really liked it because of the way that so this is as it suggests, a poetry handbook, which is about kind of looking at the form of poetry and how it's created and the different kind of things that are around poetry. So, you know, similes, metaphors. I'm trying to think, kind of, what's the word I'm looking for to do with like the tempo. It explains it in the book. I read this in January, so it's kind of falling out of my head a little bit. And I thought it was just a really nice way of approaching poetry from that place of like structure, or just looking at how poems can be formed. And she just goes through the different types of poems as well. So, you know, like haikus, sonnets, all those kind of things and stuff like that. And a lot of that I learnt when I was in school. And it's not the way in which I write poetry. A lot of the way that I write very much is just like freeform, but I think it is really nice sometimes to just understand the like mechanics of some poems. I'm not saying that you have to write in that sense or that you have to understand that in order to write poetry. Absolutely don't believe that at all. But I think, yeah, for me, I just found it like really, really insightful as a bit of a kind of revisit, but also a way of being like, I might try and practice writing poetry in some of those like styles and using some of those like little tips just to see like, you know, whether it becomes something I naturally integrate into my poetry writing process. I thought it was like really easy to read. It's told in a really simple way that anyone can just kind of understand it. I thought, you know, she really explains and shows a lot of good examples through other poems, maybe through her poems, but through some older poems and things like that. And yeah, in a way it did remind me a bit of school when you're kind of looking at, you know, deep diving into poems and things like that, but not in that really boring way. So I absolutely loved it, and I need to get myself a copy so that I can just like revisit and actually like integrate it into maybe the way that I write as well. So the next book that I'm going to speak about is Small Worlds by Caleb Azumah Nelson, and I won't talk about it too much here because I have actually already spoken about it in a reading blog, and I read some passages from the book in there, and I just highly recommend you go and listen to it so that maybe you can understand like why I found it so wonderful. I actually loved it so much that I have I had a collection of like water kind of running images on my phone, just like from bits that I'd taken out and about in Scotland, and there was a quote in there that is kind of to do with like running water, so I just made a little reel, not a reel, a post, so I will link that down below as well. But just to give you an idea of what this book is about. It is about our main character, who is Ghanaian, and he plays a music, I can't remember the instrument he plays now, but music is a huge focus of his life. I believe he's like 18, so he's on the cusp of just finishing college and going to uni, and it is about that summer in his life, and then mainly about that summer in his life and maybe just a couple of the months that come after it. And it is dealing with being a young black man living in London, the kind of life he has with his friends, the closeness of their friendship, of, you know, the friendship with another girl that is on the cusp of like being love and like what things can be, going to university, just dealing with that change in your life that comes from, you know, being a teenager to actually, hey, you've got to make like some decisions about your life and what do you want your life to look like, and then dealing with that kind of loneliness at uni, and then going on to deal with, I guess in his case, because of the decisions he makes, life after that. This book tackles grief, it tackles, you know, oh god, the loss of dreams, it tackles parenting, like relationships with your parent, it tackles, you know, being the child of an immigrant, but it also tackles like being an immigrant, and there's lovely portions of when like Michael's in Ghana, but also portions in the book of when I guess Caleb wanted us to have more context for the world of I think his name is Michael, of our protagonist, and so we see Ghana through the lens of his family, and it's incredibly beautiful. His writing is so beautiful, and I just love that final layer of context that he adds, where you really see like kind of what life is like for his parents, but also what life is like for, you know, if you are the child of an immigrant, of what your parents' life would have been like coming to a country that, you know, so vastly different from where they're from. If we're just starting with very basic things of the weather, and then dealing with, you know, the fact that they might not have had the jobs that they had in that country because it's not their qualifications are not recognised. So obviously, sadly, dealing with the racism that they would have had to have felt, and just how difficult life would have been, and the struggles that they would have had to go through, and then obviously what you receive as like an upbringing as a result of that. I think it's an incredibly stunning book, and I really just encourage everyone to read it. He's a wonderful writer, and you know, that was shown in Open Water. I think, yeah, it's called Open Water, and he shows it again in this book. It's beautiful. Please read it. So the next one I'm going to speak to you about is actually a workbook. So I actually listened to this as an audiobook, and which is why I have given it like I've already kind of read it already, and then I decided to get the physical copy because the physical copy is actually a workbook that you can write through. And this book is called Body Rites. It's a holistic healing and embodiment workbook for black survivors of sexual trauma. I think the kindness in this book is one of the most beautiful things about this book, and I think it's just good because it aligns, a lot of the practices in this book align with a lot of the practices that I already have, and therefore, you know, I felt like this book was for me, that I'd be able to kind of build on things I'm already doing or find new things that I haven't done before, and then use that as a route of like, you know, healing. I think this is very much like African American like focused, but she very much talks about like indigenous practices and kind of ancient like African practices as well. So I really love it for that. I really love it for its focus on culture and healing within culture. I think that's really important, and I think she's just found really wonderful ways to view and centre Black women in this book. And I think it's so nice to feel that you have a book that is written that encompasses you. You know, and it's not like it's you, because everyone is an individual, right? But you know it's written with you in mind, your heritage, your culture, all of those things in mind. Even down to like things like she has, you know, oh, it's coming, I promise it's coming. She has yoga poses and things in here, and even those are Black women. So it's just absolutely beautiful, and it's the versatility as well that she's included. So what I like about this is it definitely focuses on practices like, you know, she's in here talking about orishas, I think other things that she talks about. But basically it captures my vibe, because she's talking here about like making herbal oils, making herbal baths, doing yoga, plant medicine, kind of having a place of like an altar or somewhere to like, you know, focus and like do some of your practices. And it's just really beautiful. I haven't read or like done the whole thing at the moment. I'm on page 44, and so you have sections in here where you can write. She asks you questions, and for me, usually I tend to avoid kind of workbooky stuff. I just feel like these questions aren't gonna help me, but through answering some of these questions, I have had like loads of moments for pause, loads of moments for reflection, and I think it has actually just genuinely been very helpful for me. I listened to it as an audiobook first to just find out if I thought like I would like, you know, vibe with it, and I did. She really encourages kind of feeling into your body, and if you've read things like The Body Keeps the Score, you'll be familiar with things like that. But I think, yeah, she really asks you to, you know, take a step-by-step approach to how, you know, if you're reading something in this book, how then does it feel in your body? And I think it's like so important, because those are a lot of the things that you might skip over as a kind of survivor of sexual assault, like how your body actually feels. So yeah, she has things like here: what sensations are you noticing in your body in this moment? How does your body show and tell you what it's been through? What do you remember about your body before having an experience of sexual trauma? How is your body and or relationship with your body different? And again, she encourages a lot of time to take breaks, a lot of in the case of taking this at your own pace, working with a professional if you can, and all of these things to really make you feel like you are loved, that you are cared for, that you're in a space that sees you and acknowledges how hard like this can be for you, and that you can go at your own pace. And I just think it's a really wonderful, like gentle, loving resource. So loving this so far. The final book I have to talk to you about is Dawn by Octavia Butler, which is the first in the, I think it's the Exogenesis series, but they've renamed the series to Lilith's Brood. What a wonderful, wonderful book. And I have read the rest in the trilogy, and I think I've gone 5-star, 3-star, 4-star. So absolutely, as a whole, really loved it. This one focuses on the fact that Earth and the people on Earth have destroyed themselves. Our main character is called Lilith, which I absolutely love, and I believe her surname is Nigerian, and she wakes up like basically on board a spaceship of like these people, let me double check the name. I believe it's called Owen Cali, right? And they have basically saved some people from Earth, but put them in this long like suspended sleep, and Lilith is one of the first people that they wake up. They have woken up others before, but our character and our protagonist is Lilith, and she is basically tasked with waking up the others in order for them to start rebuilding life. And it's just so, you see obviously the themes in the fact that she is called Lilith as she is the first woman, but then also there's also that very interesting thing of them waking up a woman and also not a man. There is a lot of focus in this book on gender, there's a lot of focus on this book on race, because Lilith is a black woman, but it's like not so overt in the talk about race, but you know, when she awakens other people, it is people of different races. But also I guess what happens in groups when, you know, fair play to these people, they've woken up on the fucking ship and told that they're not on Earth anymore, and that these other people have kept them alive for a long time. They do plan to reinstate them into some bit of Earth, but basically they have saved them, and they have made changes to their body that they have not consented to. So there is a lot about consent in this book as well, and just basically how people feel at the thought of like feeling very powerless, you know, and not being where the last place they were, you know. It's quite a shock, isn't it? So a lot of these people understandably are very scared, And so again, it is also focusing on kind of like group settings and what happens in group settings when people feel like they are being manipulated, they don't have all the answers that they want, all of those things. And obviously Lilith being the first person in some way, are they going to try and like hold her accountable? Are they going to believe that the things that she says, are they going to believe that she is one of them? Meanwhile, Lilith has also had gone through all of this by herself, by the way, you know, having to really figure out her place in this world and what was happening to her by herself. At least the rest of you have people around. So it's just such a wonderful book talking about just, yeah, what happened to a lot of you without your consent, but also talking there, a lot of them to focus on like their previous lives and what their lives were like then. And then the present day, we focus, like I said, a lot on like gender and race and like the hierarchy that a lot of people seem to still want in place from Earth, even though they're told and they know that Earth essentially destroyed itself because of the way that humans were. And they're being promised something new, but it is about change. But people don't want to change. I think it's a really beautiful book, and I think the way she describes a lot of the bonds that Lilith forms with the new people around her, not the humans, so well. Like, I don't know, her writing is so compassionate for other people and the way that other people live. It's like a work of art reading her book, honestly. I was absolutely blown away by it. And that's, yeah, I think describing it as compassion for just how different people are is, yeah, that's the only thing I can say about it. I wish, as with the Patternist series, I wish I could like read this again, because I think it just left such an impression on me when I first read it, this and the Patternist, that I'm just like, I wish I could kind of go back to the person before who hadn't read it and read it all again and just soak it up again, because it's absolutely undeniably beautiful and just gives you so much food for thought. But that is it in terms of the best books I've read of the year so far. Like I said, I have done a video where I talk about like my kind of top 4-star reads from January to March, so I will do a link to that above here. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in another video. Bye.